Watchers Podcast. I'm the host of this mess, Rev Jeff. Tonight we're going to my childhood haunting grounds. That's right. Hunting. Place the old Rev grew up as a little kid. Daylight saving. Broad daylight. Right here tonight on this podcast. We're going to be talking about a little bit of news tonight and brand new camping tips for stupids from our good friend, Mr. Jevin Moore. So let's get to it tonight. Hi, everybody in internet lands. That's right. I'm the Reverend Jeff. The big hairy bastard is back, and we're doing more of the season 5 of encounters. And tonight we are indeed going to be going to Cambria County, Pennsylvania. Yes, there's a lot of weird things that go on up there because it's a very strange place in the world, and we will definitely get to all of that. But first, as usual, there is some news to get to tonight, and finally a bunch of Bigfoot news, which is rarely surprising. We beg for that kind of stuff. The first thing starts out a little sad, though. Plantation workers kill and eat an endangered orangutan. Hashtag stop eating your cousins. I'm seriously, people. I mean, these things are so close to DNA to us. It's creepy. It's like eating your cousin Sasha. Hey, would you like some more Sasha? Yeah, no, we don't kill these things. We protect these things. We help them. Yeah, I know they're in your way. The palm oil plantations, and those are the types of things that are taking away the habitat of the orangutan, and they shoot them full of lead pellets. It doesn't kill them, but it causes all kind of like really bad. Imagine running around with a bunch of lead in your body. It causes lead poisoning. Of course it does. In Jakarta, Indonesia, the palm oil plantation workers killed and ate a critically endangered orangutan on the island of Borneo. Bastards. According to the Indonesian lawmaker who called for police to investigate what is frequent but rarely prosecuted crime. Daniel Johan said Tuesday that the workers shot the great ape after it ventured onto the plantation in a remote area of central Kalimantan province, probably looking for crops to eat. It's a blatant offense against Indonesia's conservation laws, said Johan. Police have to investigate this cruel action. Photos of the butchered orangutan provided by witness show that they beheaded the animal. All right, that's it. I don't even want to go any further than that. You can go and read it at the New York Post. It's a horrible story at that point. Thanks on Valentine's Day to the New York Post. We love you too. Hashtag stop eating your cousins. Okay, moving right along. Q13 Fox reported a bill would make Sasquatch the official cryptid of Washington State. No offense to Washington State. Seriously, don't you have a buttload better things to be doing than to making anything the official cryptid? Anyhow, Olympia, Washington, the AP News reports a new bill seeks to designate Sasquatch as the official cryptid of Washington State. A cryptid is defined by Oxford Dictionary as an animal whose existence or survival is disputed or unsubstantiated. Well, I thought Washington State was full of the tree huggers who want inclusion. Why does Sasquatch get to be the official cryptid? Chupacabra could be there too. We don't know. Yeah, there's all kind of cryptids. That's what makes them cryptids. The bill, sponsored by Republican Senator Ann Rivers of La Center, was introduced this week. The measure says that Sasquatch, also known as Bigfoot or forest yeti, I think that's the first time I've ever heard it called a forest yeti, has made immeasurable contributions to Washington State's cultural heritage and ecosystem. Well then, as much as I'm a knower, I don't believe we've proven it to anybody yet, but hey, check it out. Q13 is right there in front of you. I don't mean it's on the internet. It must be true, right? Okay, CBS from North Carolina, searching for Bigfoot in North Carolina's Quarry National Forest. That's right. Troy, North Carolina forest, quite heavily wooded and plenty of shade. This is Bigfoot country. I've never seen him. A lot of people think they have or think he's here or been here, says Marion Owen. But before hitting the woods, there's one spot Sasquatch seekers stop in first in droves. Hundreds, Thousands, not hundreds of thousands, from all states from all over the world, I imagine. I don't know, maybe even England has sent several people over here. They call it the Uwharrie Safari. Owen said. Mary and Owen opened the El Dorado outpost with her husband and a former forester at the Uwharrie National Forest 20 years ago, and they learned very quickly to stock up on Bigfoot bait. Those candy bars, they think he likes peanut butter. I'm not sure what he eats, but I don't know. It's just, yeah, you want to get rich in gold mining, pickaxes and shovels and buckets. You want to get rich in Bigfooting, you sell Bigfoot bait to the tourists who come to the Uwharrie National Forest. Check it out. WNCN.com. That's right. It's right there in front of you again. Pardon me. All right. K-Ron 4 reports Bigfoot expedition inspires ban on state-funded searches for mythical creatures. We reported this back last year. The Idaho State there was a conference that went on. It was paid for by the college, and then the college also paid for a Bigfoot hunt that none of the students got to go on. Apparently, Larry Baker first exposed a University of New Mexico, pardon me, not Idaho State, I apologize. Yeah, that's right, the UNM expedition to find Bigfoot back in October. A foray into the forest paid for you by the taxpayers. Now a lawmaker wants to make it illegal for state-funded colleges to go hunting for mythical creatures. That'll put a stop to them. The bill comes from Gallup Senator who Larry Baker spoke with during his investigation. The bill would stop trips like the one Dr. Christopher Dyer of the UNM Gallup campus took last year. We took one day and we went up there. Yeah, walked around, Dr. Dyer said, and spent a lot of money doing it too. In response to what happened, Senator George Munoz is sponsoring the bill that would ban public funds from being spent on looking for or capturing a fictitious creature. Fictitious? Yeah, that might be a strong word as well, but yeah, what side of the fence you on there, Rev? I know, so I don't have to be on any side of the fence. I just call these articles as I see them. All right, let's see here. Inform.com on the hunt for Bigfoot in northern Minnesota. Man, we're taking you all over the place here. Mike Hexum says he first saw Bigfoot from a homemade deer stand on Minnesota's Iron Range. He was 14 years old and old enough for his father to send him alone into the woods with a sandwich and a rifle. Absolutely. At 14, I was taking deer on my own. That's exactly, we're going to talk about that in here in a little bit tonight. So he walked into a shooting lane 30 feet in front of me. Hexum recalls, I thought it was a guy, a big dark guy with a prehistoric face on it. Of course, I freaked out. I couldn't get out of the woods fast enough. Boy, I know how you feel there, Mike. Seriously. He told his father what he saw, and his father told him to never talk about it. Hey, he said it would embarrass the family, Hexum says. So Hexum went all of his life, and he got out of high school, moved away, and got married, had 3 kids, and didn't talk about Bigfoot for a long time. He says he'd forgotten what he'd seen. But the marriage didn't work out, and a few years ago, he was laid off from his welding job, and he moved back to a small cabin in the woods near his childhood home and started watching TV shows about Bigfoot. Then one morning, he says, he saw Bigfoot again. The place I live, I didn't have any running water, he said, so I had a ritual of every morning going down to the lake. I had a hole in the ice for getting water for the dishes and washing, and I brought some coffee and watched the sun come up. He says a tall, hairy creature was walking on the ice that winter morning, far out across the lake. That's when he started to remember his childhood experience, when he started to believe. Now Hexum is one of Minnesota's most dedicated Bigfoot researchers. He spends his evenings in the woods or behind the keyboard chatting with other enthusiasts online. And as a matter of fact, I believe he's on my friends list, and I might have to dig up Mike. If you're listening tonight or you catch this show, go ahead and send me a PM. Let's set up a show time. We'll talk about all kind of cool stuff, and Bigfoot sightings being the main attraction. He says he's found a new purpose for returning to the very woods of his first sighting. He is scouting locations for Animal Planet's Finding Bigfoot, which will film an episode in Minnesota later this year. You can check out the rest of the story there on inforum.com. SLP507.com. If you need the link, let me know. I'll be glad to give it to you. Okay, finally tonight, a little bit of sad news that we had at the end of last week's show. Tom Yamron has survived, thank goodness, of a stroke. He is in fair to a living condition. Don't get me wrong; he's not in critical condition any longer. But he is in serious need of some medical attention. And this is not a GoFundMe campaign. This is not a Kickstarter. This is literally a you caring, compassionate crowdfunding. I mean, these are certified people, and they're just asking if you can help out a Bigfooter. Now's the kind of time to do it. No matter who you were a woo footer, a biology Bigfooter, a UFO Bigfooter, doesn't matter. Tom Yamron, he's like the Bob Dylan of the Bigfoot world. Everybody loves the yams. So if you need this link as well, I have it. I can definitely post up a link if you need one. So get a hold of me if you need this, and there will be a link in the Squatchers Lounge later on after the show tonight. Even just sharing it can really can result in people seeing it that maybe can contribute. So Tom, buddy, we're praying for you. We're giving you all of our good heart and warmth and everything else we can. Whoever's listening for us, we're praying for you, buddy. I hope you recover from this soon, and have a quality of life the rest of the days that you are with us. All right. That was a long bit of the news. You have to excuse me for just a moment. Okay, I guess it's that time of the show where we're going to get into a little bit of camping tips for stupids. That's right, from our good friend here, Jevin Moore. Let's see what he's got for us this week.
Camping tips for stupids. Tip number 31. Humans are the most selfish, egotistical, and vanity-driven alien-engineered organic robots ever made by God. When you are out camping, you will come across this strange and bizarre race of millennial liberal hipsters, always taking pics of themselves, talking to strange little machines in their hands that they call phones, but never use them like one. Weirdos. And some of these strange weirdos think it's okay to take selfies with wild animals. And to that I say, good riddance. There's one thing when posing next to a herbivore, though if you're a vegan, still might want to practice caution. They can still smell your breath, But it's another thing to stand there like a moron and pose with animals that eat flesh on a regular basis. But to that, I still say good riddance. This has been Camping Tips for Stupids. Remember to spay and neuter your idiot population.
That's right. Remember to spay and neuter your idiot populations. Thank you very much, Kevin, for Camping Tips for Stupids. I love those, dude. They're fantastic. That's one of the reasons that I keep doing this show, is just to keep helping those get out there. All right, people, it's going to be that time again. Once again, the week we see who's hanging out in the live Squatchers Lounge podcast chat room. Hello, internet peoples. So if you haven't said hi in the chat room, I don't know you're there, so I can't really say that you're there, but I'm going to say hi to the people that are out there. Look at that. We got a Sam Squanch Rivera hiding out in the room tonight. Mr. Rock City Marco. How you doing, pal? Good to see you're out there as well. Mr. Squatch Box. He's hanging out again tonight. California Pickin'. How you doing there, Drew? Glad you're joining us tonight. If you want to know about antiques, get a hold of that guy. Apparently, he knows a bunch of that stuff. There's a Mutation Design hanging out with us tonight. We're glad you are there as well. Starshine, that's right. How come she doesn't have a hammer? Oh, she has a hammer in the other show. There you go. Look, there's a Mr. Rod Dupree. He's always in the place to be. Let's see here. Of course, we've got Mr. Dean Cooper, who was just still too sick to do a quasi this week, and I know what that feels like. Bastard. Oh, I would wish this on my worst enemy. but not anybody else, because that kind of would suck a whole lot. Let's see here. Who else is floating around out there tonight in Internet lands? There's the Life and Times of JCM. That's right. Our Jevin Moore, the Jesus Christ of Monterey Bay. Let's see here. KT Evans, how you doing? Glad you joined us out there tonight as well. Our now batting third base, our center fielder, Mr. Kurt Harris. How you doing, buddy? Hope you're feeling really good. Let's see here. I'm sure there's more people out there in Internet lands that I haven't said hi to. Mr. Collier Wilmus, I'm sure he was floating around out there. How you doing, Cole? There was a bunch of people out there in Internet lands before the show. And I think we're here live Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Pacific. That's right. Specifically Pacific. That's right. Specifically Pacific is when we are, but you can figure out what time that is anytime or day or night. All right. Finally, tonight, we're already up to it, people. We're going to get into the Cambria County, Pennsylvania Bigfoot sightings. That's right. That's where the old Reverend was born. If you didn't, I'm surprised you didn't know that about me. Apparently I was born in a place called Johnstown, Pennsylvania. That's this little tiny place. Well, I'm going to show you where that is in just a moment, and we'll see. You'll get to see what I got to see. Yeah, exactly. I'm stalling for a moment because my link didn't work. It's one of those things that you plan and you do all this preparation before the show, and it doesn't seem to matter because, well, it's going to do whatever it's going to do anyhow. So that's all right. We'll pull it back up here live and for everybody what we're talking about. And scene. That's right. Here. It's here. I know it's here. There it is. That's the one I wanted. Yay. Okay. So we're talking about Cambria County, Pennsylvania. Where's Cambria County, Pennsylvania? Well, if you scroll out here just a little bit to the left over there, there's Pittsburgh. Okay. So it's west of Philadelphia. It's west of Harrisburg. It's south of State College. It's south of Clearfield. It's like almost dead smack in the middle. Yeah. Okay. That's where it is. That's Cambria County. And you think to yourself, why would there be any Bigfoots in Cambria County, Pennsylvania? That doesn't make any sense. Well, yeah, actually it does, because when we click this other little button down here that actually shows these days, Google will catch up with my demands, but I sure do ask a lot of it. Prince Gallatin State Park is up here in the freshwater springs of the mountaintops. And where I come from is there's the googly earth button that I've been waiting to show up. Let's go ahead and switch it over to there. On the edge of the Gallatin State Forest are public game lands that you can hunt as well. But as we can see now on the googly earth, and it's going to even highlight our Cambria County here again, as you can see, we're literally at the top of the mountains. I mean, we're at 6,500, 7,000, 8,000 feet. These are the Appalachian Mountains. And Johnstown is right over here in the corner of the state itself. And that's where we would leave to go and travel from. So let's go ahead and take a peek here at some of the Cambria County sightings. The earliest one that we were able to find was in January of 1979. And it was a Class A sighting. And let's see here. While walking home alone at night, a man encounters a large, hairy, human-like creature. Wintertime, near Patton, Pennsylvania, which of course is up there by the Gallatin State Forest. And Let me zoom in up on where Patton is for you. Patton is right up here. There you go. There's a good idea of what the nearest town of Patton looks like. And you can see that these are all mountain caps. These are not giant cities. These are sparsely covered places where there are homes. There's a group of 100, and then there's 3/4 of a mile where there's nothing, and then there's 10 miles where there's nothing. And you can literally see that it's just farm top. It is what we're all looking at here. In January 1979, I was visiting some friends at their farm in Cambria County, just outside of Patton, Pennsylvania. They had recently had one of their beef cattle butchered, and I was helping them wrap the meat. The farm was at the top of a ridge, and it could only be reached via a gravel and dirt lane winding through the woods approximately a half mile. Told me if I wanted a ride home, I was to meet her at the bottom of their lane at 7 p.m. as she was returning from town. Unless you have a 4-wheel drive, you could not make it up their lane in the winter in the ice and snow. And that is very true. I had relatives that lived up on some of these mountaintop farms that you just parked down at the street and you hiked up the icy road because it was easier than pulling your car out of the ditch that was going to be there from the water that runs off every spring. Anyhow, I had dialed around and I dallied around and decided to stay long to meet my mother. It was about 9:30 p.m. and my friend's father asked me if I wanted to ride to my uncle's house where we were staying, and my friends were making fun of me for needing a ride home, so I turned it down, dumbass. Home that night numerous times during both winter and summer, and they gave me a knapsack and put a few stakes in it for my help and a large metal flashlight, which I would not have really needed as snow was on the ground and was a full moon that night. Left their house, I was aware of a very strange odor in the air, like stale armpits or dirty socks, but I figured it was something from the coal furnace. I started down the lane, and when I felt a very real feeling that someone was watching me, and the hairs on my neck stood on end. When I looked up towards their farmhouse, and approximately 80 to 100 yards away, standing on the raised edge of their pond, was a huge, dark, hairy animal. As I turned to look at it, it did not move. As soon as my eyes focused on it, I knew right away that it was looking at me. I know this sounds very strange, but even though it was far away, it was as if we were staring at each other from across the room. I did not react with thinking, but I did not react with thinking. Anyhow, I was scared out of my mind. I did make a decision, why I do not know, to run down the lane and try to get some distance between myself and it. Down the lane, I began hearing crashing sounds coming from an old logging road approximately 200 feet into the woods to my left. While I ran, the noise kept pace with me, and when I fell on some ice, I was sure it would have overtaken me. By the time I got to the end of their lane, I was not aware of any more noises and never lost pace as I ran the next 3/4 of a mile up the asphalt to my uncle's house. I beat on the door, and when it opened, I collapsed inside and passed out. My uncle and my aunt asked me what was wrong, and I was too afraid to tell them, ridiculed. Years later, after watching an episode of In Search of, I saw the Patterson Bigfoot film and absolutely knew that that was the same type of creature I saw that night years earlier. I have to say that I saw, and I did not see a man, a black bear, or a deer. When I made eye contact with this thing, I knew it was thinking being and not just a wild animal. I was raised in the country and I've seen all of these animals both at night and day. To this day, I won't go into the woods near there after dark, and whenever I'm in a vehicle or not. Strange or not, I can count on one hand without using my thumb the number of people I've actually told this story to. You know, the big thing that they noticed was the weird odor like armpits and dirty feet. There's a lot of people that actually report that exact same type of thing. And as you can, as we're looking here at the map, just of Patton, you can actually see what we're talking about with these farms, where they're a half mile, 3/4 of a mile apart. But as far as what the city of Patton is concerned, there's your main population of Patton. Patton has a population of, say, 3,500 people, which is what I'm estimating this would be. 2,900 of them live in downtown. The other 400 live spread out over top of all these farms. And there's absolutely water everywhere. There's freshwater springs everywhere. There's food everywhere. There's deer. There's everything you could imagine that the Sasquatch would want in these types of areas. So let's go and see if we can't find another interesting encounter story from, let's see here, February 1998. That's actually a few years after my sighting. 9. And this one here tells us that, while walking alone in the woods, a boy comes face to face with an 8-foot tall creature. It is near the old Liberty Park swimming pool on Waterdam Road. Go up it. There's several places I'd like to take you there because where I used to live and the woods are complicated. So it's one of those kinds of stories. So, South Fork of Route 219. I'll tell you about my visual incident. I was walking in the woods behind my old place when I heard some noise. At first, I thought it was a deer or something, so I looked to see what it was. When I looked, I seen its face. It was one of the scariest things I had ever seen, but at the same moment, it was interesting. As it looked at me, it then walked off. I ran as fast as I could back home, but I don't remember my feet touching the ground at all. Now I'm going to tell you what it looked like. It was about 8 to 9 foot tall, and it is an educated guess. Its fur was dark color, a cross between a brown and a black, with a tint of red to it. Pardon me. Its face was like a cross between an ape and a man. The nose was ape-like. The skull was sort of like a gorilla's and had the look of a man's structure in the face. It was greatly built in the body and muscle mass. Later, me and a friend tried to get a plaster cast of one of the footprints, but it didn't work. But we got photos of the prints and stuff. Right now, towards winter is the best time to see them because they're easy to find and easy to see. So notice a very strange noise, like a cross between an elephant and something they had never heard before. That's an interesting account from a younger person. The springtime of 1998. Let's see, here's another one. Here, March of 2000, Class A. A man has ongoing encounters with Bigfoot type creatures. Let's see. I always love the details of these. All right. March 19th through the 24th. It's a well-wooded area with a lot of pine trees and a small-sized stream about a 1/4 mile away near Evansboro. Well, let's take a look here. Actually, back down here in the middle a little bit. We can scroll out of Patton and where it meets up with, there's Edinburgh down here. Evansburg. Sorry, not Evansboro. Evansburg was a travel route that we went through. We camped out past Evansburg. We went to the Glitzen area to go, the Alligator. Evansboro is kind of a gateway town. But again, if there's 6,000 people living there, 5,500 of them are living in downtown, and there's 1,000 people living across these mountaintop farms, as again, you're seeing. And unlike the farms of the flatlands, they don't cut down the woods unless they have to. So between these farms, there's a lot of forested areas that, that separate the two because there's no point in cutting them down because you can't farm them. So there's just huge straps of forested pieces just wrapping all of these little mountaintop cities. This city would be huge if it could, but it's literally like in the pocket of the mountain cap. I mean, that's where these little cities are positioned, back and forth across Pennsylvania. So let's see what this report had to say. Pennsylvania Route 160 there through Evansboro. While we were hiking, we began to hear what we considered to be a scream moan. Then when we looked to our left, we saw the head of a non-human species looking towards us from behind a tree. About 30 seconds, then ran away from us at a very fast speed. It looked that almost of human figure, in which it was about 5 or 6 feet tall and looked fairly large. That was only the first of the occurrences in which we have seen this creature. To this day, we still sight the beast around our woodland homes and have heard the screams and cries of what we believe to be Bigfoot. They also noticed that I was once climbing a fairly tall pine tree when I heard something walking under me. At first, I thought it was my dog, but I changed my mind about that idea when I heard and saw my dog barking in the distance. Then when I dropped the tree branch down at it, quickly got up sight, which I only saw for about a second because of the quickness, and it darted under some trees. By the time I got down from the tree, it was already gone. We've heard the moan scream a few other times and have seen tall creatures run at fast speeds right in front of our eyes. Other witnesses say that there were 4 of us hiking in the woods just after lunch. We were going to the local stream to fish. Day with a little cloud cover and a little wind. It's a lot of pine trees and a small stream, a quarter mile, in which the sides are covered with tall grass, vegetation, nuts, and berries. Well, this was actually one that the BFRO had followed up on, and witnesses had actually found 2 deer carcasses that were ripped apart. He didn't know of any internal organs that were missing. Found what appeared to be stick forts in the deep woods. These structures appeared to be designed to not only conceal, but also to provide shelter from the elements. The witnesses say the roof was constructed in such a way to make the shelter waterproof by the precise arrangement of the tree bark pieces. Sounds more survival sheltered, but anyhow. Fresh greenery placed about the exterior, which concealed the premises from view. The witnesses said that they approached one of those forts and found a creature lying inside. Now that is the first time I've ever heard of somebody actually finding a creature lying inside of one of these structures. When the animal saw the witness, it darted away from the shelter and through the woods with extreme speed. The witness and many neighbors continued to hear suspected Sasquatch howls and screams. This area of Cambria County has had numerous and recent sightings and will be the subject of ongoing. I'm totally right there with you. That's a place that around that area, all of Cambria County is just Sasquatch zone. And I'm not, how many live in Cambria County? It's hard to say. 100 maybe, 150. If we really take a zoom back here and look at where it really is, I don't know how many pods would live. Because I know we don't know anything about them. God bless it. I'd love to know all that information, but we don't. In the long and the short of it, Cambria County is, an average sized county in Pennsylvania. It's all across these mountaintops. It's all across these grasslands and the Appalachian Mountain. Trail runs right up along these ridge lines and goes all the way up to Maine. Starts in Georgia and ends up in the top of the world pretty much. So it's really hard to say exactly, the Glitzen State Park, since there's absolutely no hunting allowed going on in there. I'm sure that's a safe refuge. But let's take a look here at another one in 2000, summer, July 15th, near the Elmerle Bakerton area. So we're talking about the next just little town over. My husband and I are avid fishermen and hunters, and our favorite time to fish is in the late evening and at night. On this particular night, my husband was out of town and working, and I decided to go fishing in a local reservoir about 3 miles from where I grew up. 1 a.m. and the fish were biting very well that night, so I decided to stay a little later than normal. I was sitting at the breast of the dam fishing when I heard footsteps coming up the road. It's a dirt road approximately 35 yards away from where I had been. There are a few houses, not many on the road, and it's a small town, so I naturally looked up to see who was walking by. It was then that I realized that it wasn't who was not the question, but what, as in, what the hell is that? So I pulled out my flashlight and pointed it in that direction of it. The light passed over its eyes, and they reflected back at me in a greenish yellow flash. The creature was probably 6 to 7 feet tall and very hairy. It was brown in color and quite broad. It walked upright with swift, long strides, and it was so huge in its mass, and I guessed that it would have been at least 400 pounds. Never seen anything like it and prefer to never see it again. I was definitely scared. Just at that point, as I was pondering on which direction I was going if this thing took off after me, in front of me is the water and at least a good 6 to 8 foot drop until I get there. Behind me is a 20-foot drop to the ground. Mind you, I'm sitting on old cement reservoir breast, and it's turned out the creature only looked in my direction once. When the light hit its eyes, it did not seem to notice or even care that I was there. It never lost a step, just kept on walking and turned and disappeared into the woods, not far from where my car was parked, thank God. I just wanted long enough to assure that it was gone and at least not interested in me when I packed up my gear, walked quietly back to my car, and drove out of there. The whole incident may have lasted only 3 or 4 minutes, but time seemed to stop. I've since not gone fishing at night alone. Family about this, and they told me that I'm crazy and laugh. I've been teased about this for the last 3 years, and I don't care what anyone says. I know what I saw was not human, and definitely twarn't no bear. Like everybody says, it wasn't no bear. Now, they also did one night about 2 weeks before the sighting when her husband was there in the same place. We heard some strange screams, noises neither of us recognized. They were very high-pitched and repetitive. Another follow-up investigation was done along these lines, and the BFRO found it to be a credible eyewitness account. So again, here's another story from Cambria County that tells you that people see Bigfoots in these areas. Now, it's not to disclose exactly the location where our hunting ground is, but let's just say that it's private land somewhere between Prince Gallitzin State Park and the State 120. And if you're watching this show on a screen big enough to figure out where that is, then you can probably see exactly where I'm talking about. Anyhow, it was getting to be, it was a week before bow season opened. And I decided that I was going to go find out where the deer were. Now, all of our lives, they always send us youngsters out to go stalk deer while they all sat up in the deer stands behind us. And the idea is knowing that we're going to get out there and make a whole bunch of stinking noise, and we're going to drive the deer over the ridge, and it's going to run past their deer stands, and they're going to all get a deer, and they're all going to laugh at us. Ha, 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 ha. Well, every year I'd come back with a deer on the first day while those putzes were still sitting up there in their deer stands, and I didn't have to go back out and sit in the freaking cold anymore because I would pre-hunt. I'd go out there all dressed up in camouflage, and I would look and find where the deer are laying and bedding down and eating, so that the next week when we came back out there, guess what? We knew where to go and hunt. Well, this was the year that I had started that, and I was the first year that I was able to go by myself, is basically what I'm saying. 16, got my driver's license, got my car, got it out that way, drove up to the family hunting land, and decided I'm just going to spend a weekend out here, and I'll know where all the deer are, and I'll help all the younger cousins get their deer before the old men do, and they can sit up in them stands all damn weekend, and we can laugh at them for once. So all morning, I'd parked out at the lodge, at the cabin, and all morning I was out checking different locations, and I hadn't really seen much. I've seen a lot of 2 or 3 day old activity, but that wasn't really telling me much. And there's a meadow sitting in the back end of this property that there's a game trail that runs down. Now, the game trail is pretty tall because the bear do go through there. And the deer, the white-tailed deer in this area are probably 260, 280-pound animals, in full skin and everything else. So they're pretty big animals. It is. The game trails are pretty big. So I decided to follow this game trail back out to this meadow. And as I was coming out the end of this game trail, there's a little bit of a widening right before the meadow, and then it narrows back out. And I heard something large moving through the tree line that parallels the edge of that meadow. So I think it's got to be a big buck. I'm like, it's crashing through the woods. Crunch, crunch, crunch. And I'm like, oh, man, that's got to be something really big. So there's about halfway, falling off a bush and a tree laying there, or standing there. So I kind of crouched down between them, all camouflaged up. And I just keep hearing this thing getting closer, just cracking, crack, coming through the woods, smash. It's like, what the heck is that thing doing? Has it got a tree stuck in its friggin' antlers or what? And just as I'm expecting to see this big buck come out of the tree line, out steps this, just like these people are describing, a cross between a brown and a black with like red highlight, dark man figure out with these big long legs and these big goofy arms, and it's ripped across the chest like a muscle man. I mean, and then the hair on it is, it's not draping like an orangutan. It's 3 or 4 inches thicker, longer at the wrist, and then narrows off into the fingers. And it was, it was shorter as it went up to the elbow. It was a little more bare across the chest and the abdomen, and then got thick again on the sides back down into the legs. That the legs were like, the only way I can really explain it was like they were bodybuilder legs. And it stepped down this embankment, and as it did, you could see that it wasn't monkey legs. Monkey legs are really short, and they don't really extend anywhere. And these things, it had no problem walking down the side of this embankment like it was nothing. It planted that front of its foot down, and it laid the back down, and down it came. And it crossed the game trail in front of me, It couldn't have been more than maybe 70 feet. So you figure, the end of a 50-foot tape measure, and then another 20 feet. And this thing had to have been 7 foot tall. It wasn't an 8-footer. I always wanted to make it bigger than it was, but it really wasn't. It was 7.5 foot tall, maybe. 390-pound bodybuilder type frame, like a 400-pound dude that's benching 550. That's the kind of look that this thing had to it. And it was scary. And not because it was making noise like it was scary, and not because it was growling or had blood dripping from it. Just the idea that this monster that was always, is it real? Is it not real? I don't know. It's real. Well, for me, it's real. This monster is there in front of you. And before I know it, it's across the game trail, pushed back up into the tree line, and it reaches up with each hand, one kind of, it was a weird grasp. Unlike a man, it would just kind of reach forward and grab it thumb in. This thing reached up and grabbed it thumb out, underhanded, and pulled itself back into the tree line and just crunched itself away, and it was gone. And much like that lady who was fishing just a moment ago, where she just wanted to make sure that it was gone long enough, not interested in her, I was out. I didn't give a damn about where the deer were at that point. I didn't even give a damn about staying the weekend. I was back home. 4-hour drive, people. I mean, that's literally how far I went to go that day. So we're supposed to be gone the whole weekend. 11 hours later, I'm back home. And my mom's like, why are you here? I thought you were going to be gone all weekend long. And I was like, yeah, well, I ran into some problems and some things I didn't understand, so I just came home. She was like, yeah, that's probably a good idea. Home is always a safe place. That was always one of the things she instilled in me. Like, when things are going wrong at a party, go home. It's okay. When things are going wrong with your friends, just go home. It's okay. It'll all work out in the end. But the biggest thing about that, I knew that this wasn't a man in a suit, and then everybody's going to laugh and everybody's waiting for it. They're like, oh, he didn't talk about it. This thing had genitalia. And when it came down that first embankment, it was swinging a set of balls the size of softballs. And like I said, everybody talks about how long the arms are. They hang down to the knees. But nobody really talks about how goofy this monkey thing is with long legs. Like legs like a man. And that was what my brain couldn't really get a grasp of this thing had legs like a man and moved like a man. But my God, there was no way it was a man. And, the whole thing lasted 30 seconds, maybe, until I was just, it's behind me. Because it was pre-deer season, so you didn't want to be out there with no weapons. I had a pocket knife, a pen knife. Like I carry a pen knife everywhere. I don't give a crap. It's just anyhow. I had a pen knife in my pocket. That was it. I mean, there wasn't no defending myself against a Bigfoot with a pen knife. And it's pretty rugged territory where we're talking about over here. As we zoom in, where we're it's nothing really to be playing with. It might take you a bit to find anybody. There's people, but they're not. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow, you might get the extra 10 miles to find somebody. But today is the important part. And I did, man. I booked the heck out of there. And much like a lot of the stories that we heard tonight, I didn't know that I ever wanted to see one again. I mean, that's really the way the truth of it. When I moved out here to California and started working with some people who really were in Bigfoot territory, I really had to think about it. Did I really want to put myself back out there with these creatures, knowing, that thing's strong enough to rip both your arms off, beat you to death with the bloody pulp? Just, y'all need to see Hunting Grounds or Valley of the Sasquatch. Trust me. It gives you a good idea of what I mean by that. Yeah, it takes courage, or bravery more than courage. Courage is doing the right thing in the face of fear. Bravery is doing stupid shit even though you're afraid of it. That's kind of the truth of the matter there. And I guess it takes a little bit of bravery to go out with some of these guys and really put yourself into it, because some of the stories that you've heard across the years that I've dealt with some of these guys, something grabbed one of the investigators' legs through his tent and was trying to pull him off of his cot. If it was a bear, it would have left bear prints on the tent. It would have left teeth marks through the tent. There wasn't any of that. The dude had his shotgun in his gut saying, "I'm going to shoot you if you don't let go." So if it was a person, it would have let go, and it didn't. And he still didn't want to kill whatever it was, so he didn't pull the trigger. I mean, that's how close these things have been in some of the events with some of the investigators that we worked with on this mountain. And to be honest with you, I've heard the calls. I've heard the whoop. I know they're out there, and we're figuring out more and more each season. And as I've always said, the only way you're ever going to get one of these things on any kind of good film or be able to capture one or kill one is you're going to have to be able to predict where it's going to be. Game movement and prediction. It's the only thing that's going to happen in this. You're going to have to be able to predict where that thing's going to be to either set a trap or to set up film to be able to capture it. And the more time that we investigate on the mountain and the more incidents we forced to happen, the more we actually figure out. So that's my whole story coming from Cambria County, Pennsylvania. There's a lot of stories that still go on. Allegheny County, out to Altoona. I've got an aunt that's got a horse farm out there. We'll go out. We'll take a trip out there later in the season of encounters, and I'll tell you that story, because that's been going on for God damn near 30, 35 years now since she's owned that property out there. And it's a really interesting story. So that's pretty much where we're going to leave it for this week on the Squatchers Lounge podcast. The season of encounters is upon us. That's right. And tonight y'all got to hear another little tidbit upon one of the Reverend's up close and personal sightings, just like this. This is pretty much the view that I had of this creature, was that whole side view. Now, of course, this is the fleece squatch, as I call him. But I never got it. It never looked directly at me. So I never really got that. What the hell does it look like type of thing, in the face. But I would have to say, lingering all these years later, chimpanzee, giant upright walking chimpanzee more than anything else. Not gorilla, not orangutan, not Gigantopithecus blackie. Upright walking hairy chimpanzee is what I saw pretty much. All right, folks. Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I see I've captured all of your attention to the end once again, and I love that. So thanks for joining us on the Squatchers Lounge podcast tonight. We'll see you again next week for another of the season of encounters. You'll have to tune in to find out where we're going to be. Thanks so much for joining us, and may the Squatch be with you. After hangout, I'll stick the link right in the chat there. You guys can grab it on the chat. Facebook. Glad to send you the one there. Sam, I'll send you one on Google Hangouts if you want to try that one too. Wyatt Ola, I see you made it in late. Norm Van Edward Hall. Glad you could join us. See everybody next week.